Good evening to you all, and welcome to our work session for the month of November, our last meeting during this month. So our meeting always is a little different, and we do the preliminaries a little differently at the meeting. So I'm going to ask the clerk, if she will, to call the roll at this time. Thank you.
Mayor Marshburn?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Vance?
Here.
Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Member Singleton? Here. Councilmember Dellinger?
Here.
And Councilmember Behringer? Here.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, council, for being here. The first item is the adoption of the agenda, and there's a caveat or an add-on, I believe, that is requested that we have a closed session at the conclusion of the regular agenda. Am I correct on that, Mr. Manager?
That's correct. For economic development, yes.
Okay. The site for that, North Carolina statutes, I bet our town attorney does.
Yes, 143-318.11A4.
Okay, somebody give me a motion on that. We'll vote on that.
Move. Second.
Okay, so all in favor of the agenda with that add-on for the closed session, would you vote aye?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? No, and there is none. All right. So we enter at this time into some discussion and reports. And the first item, as you can see on the agenda, is a public art for Garner. And so I'm going to recognize Assistant Town Manager Jody Miller and/or our Parks and Rec Director, Ms. Blanco. Who's going first? Or
So, Mayor, I am. I'm going to do the introduction, and I'm going to hand it over to Maria. So, Mayor and members of council, good evening. Great to see you this evening. We're excited to bring you this presentation on public art and what it could mean for Garner. This is really a follow-up conversation to the conversation the council had at their February retreat, but we also talked some about this as part of the Garner Forward work with a comprehensive plan, and what does it mean to include public art in our community and think about beautification strategically. So we've asked Director Menezes Blanco to prepare an overview of what public art is, some of the challenges and opportunities with public art, and also to share with you some examples of what other communities are doing. At the end of the presentation, which is just for information this evening, we'll be asking if there's a consensus among council and an interest in wanting to look at this further, at which time we'll bring back some specific suggestions and recommendations during the February retreat. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Maria.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Delighted to be here to talk about public art. It's something that has been part of my life for a very, very long time. So it's always challenging and fun to be part of it. Jody talked about the purpose of tonight's presentation, so I'm going to skip this slide and kind of start by sort of giving you a framework of what is public art. I sort of went to the source. Americans for the Arts is a national association that sort of collectively looks at arts policy in the United States and through local arts agencies. And they have a group of entities called the Public Art Network, and they have come up with a working definition of what public art is and what it can be. And I think obviously the location of art in public spaces is a big part of this definition, as well as the sort of very open, broad variety of types of art that can be considered public art. Can be permanent, can be temporary, can be architectural, can be community art, can be digital nowadays that we're in the 21st century. So a bit of everything can be considered public art. I mentioned earlier, it could be temporary, it could be permanent. And I think this is a really important distinction in sort of trying to figure out a direction for a program for any community, whether you go with temporary works that have a limited time frame for the project, could be a month, could be a year, could be a couple of years. You can either sort of borrow existing work from artists, or you can commission site-specific work. When it comes to temporary work, there's a great sort of flexibility in the materials that you can use. Because again, it's sort of at the end of a cycle, it can be moved away, and the location can change from year to year. when it comes to permanent, you're really considering the life expectancy of a work of art, and think of it in the same context of a public facility. You build a building for 20, 30 years, you commission permanent public art. Oh, I left my water somewhere. For 20 plus years of expectancy, which means, thank you so much, which means that the scale and the materials will have to be considered with much more care than what you do with a temporary public art project. And again, you sort of look for a publicly owned facility, publicly owned land, a space where people can encounter the art as they go about their daily lives without necessarily having to go to see the art. Funding options are many, and this is again a policy decision that really guides a program. Some jurisdictions will do an annual allocation. They decide as part of their annual budget how much money they can dedicate to commission public art, whether it's permanent or temporary. Since the sort of mid-20th century, like the 1940s, percent for art programs started to come about in municipalities where they would dedicate a specific percentage, typically of capital projects, to a fund that was then used to commission permanent public art projects. And typically, since capital projects are generally funded through bonds or some sort of long-term debt service, percent for art programs are typically used only for permanent projects. In some jurisdictions, they do require private development to include public art or pay a fee in lieu to a public art fund. This was very typical in California, I would say in the 1980s, 1990s, and to this day. I don't know that there's any jurisdiction in North Carolina that does this, but I have not researched this in depth. And there's always the opportunity, again, to privately fund public art through donations, sponsorships, or grants. I use the word governance here, not necessarily thinking of a governing board for public art, but thinking of the systems and processes that you have to put in place for a program. I started by looking to see if the General Assembly had given municipalities the ability to do public art, and they do. There's a particular statute that allows for municipalities to be in the business of contracting for art programs. So that falls into that. There's obviously procurement regulations that would have to be followed, and the interesting sort of copyright and the Visual Artists' Rights Act that really come into play when it comes to commissioning art, creative works in general. There's a decision-making process. Some communities will delegate the selection of artists and projects to a citizen committee. Some communities have really sort of decided to think about public art in the context of more of a curatorial approach, where there's somebody who's trained and has the expertise to do that. In some other places, the governing body has retained the ability to make the artistic decisions for their community. The resources that are needed to operate a public art program it's very time consuming. As fun as it is and engaging to work with artists, it can be very time consuming. You do have the need for operating funds, and you certainly have the need for capital funds if you're going to do permanent art commissions. I wanted to make sure that this didn't just fall through my presentation. That's why I sort of put a separate slide for it. In the 1990s, the Congress passed the Visual Artists' Rights Act of 1990, which gives artists, it's modeled after French law, the moral rights of artists, and it gives artists some very specific authorship and rights to the work that they are commissioned. And again, our town attorney can talk about case law as it comes to, it really applies to the removal and alteration of permanent works of art. That's when it really sort of becomes critical to have a very strong contract with the artist when you commission public art. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It does protect the artistic intent, but it can become challenging when the purpose of a building changes, when the purpose of a park, for example, has to change, has to be built. You're adding fields, you're changing, and you have a piece of art that you have to move. You do have to, this is where the VAR rights can become an interesting challenge for municipalities. Temporary public art, I think the most important part of it really has to do with determining the location and the approval process. What are the parameters of the project? Is there a theme that you change every year? Do you have it more open-ended? Do you want to do sculptures? Do you want to do murals? How do you engage the community to make sure there's community support? Since you're putting art in public spaces, the issues of risk and insurance are really important. The cost of installation, security, what do you do when something gets vandalized? All that stuff you really have to sort of think ahead so that you have a strong program. In our area of the world, towns like Apex, Cary, Clayton, and other Triangle municipalities do have this kind of program. And you may recall that about 2 years ago, DGA produced the Art Around Town, which was essentially a really successful temporary public art program. And the images that you see on the presentation are the little maps from Clayton is the one on the top, and Apex is the one on the bottom of their sort of annual temporary public art program. And this is just the more detail. I actually drove down to Clayton to see how they were installing theirs, and they sort of have a couple of parklets around their downtown area that have this sort of, what I'm guessing are permanent concrete pads where sculptures are attached, and they're from different artists. Typically, I think most of the Clayton ones were North Carolina artists. And there's permanent public art. I think this is where it's really important to, again, sort of make sure that your ordinance that enables the program is really strong, that you have a very clear approach to the funding mechanism and to the way you're going to make decisions about governance and commissions. And examples of this type of programs in the Triangle, the City of Raleigh has a 1% program. Durham has up to 1%, so they give themselves some flexibility, as does the town of Chapel Hill. And these are some of the examples of in downtown Cary. They also have a permanent public art program. The ones at the top were donated by a nonprofit organization, and the ones at the bottom were commissioned by the town. The one on your bottom right, it's actually a functional piece of public art. This is one of the benches along Academy Street. So that's another aspect of public art. It can be functional. It doesn't always have to be decorative. Garner has public art. It's nothing new to the town. The Veterans Memorial is by a very well-known North Carolina artist, Thomas Ayer, and it's a beautiful piece of public art as well as a very moving memorial. The other memorial that the town has for the Conagra tragedy at White Deer Park is also a beautiful piece of art by a Durham artist. Then we do have a couple of others. The most recent one at the GRC, sports mural by Sean Koenig. And one aspect that is very popular, and I think it's one of the sort of most common approaches to public art, are murals. And we have quite a few of those in Garner, both in privately owned buildings, like the one at Full Bloom Cafe, or like the one at the police station that's more of a publicly owned facility. And that's it for my presentation. Again, sort of your feedback on ideas, direction, concepts that you may want for us to pursue and bring back to you at a later date.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. There's, in my view, quite a bit to consider when it comes to the whole concept of public art. So, Council, give you an opportunity to ask questions of Maria if you want to at this time. Phil, you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Singleton?
Yeah, I'm interested in, I know there's different examples of how to incorporate it, whether it's a line item or 1% here, or you incorporate it into, I reckon, development. When you talk about developers, you're talking about more of a, I'm trying to find it on here, they would participate like fee in lieu of, is that what, that's what it was? And not asking them to do it unless some of them volunteer to do that.
Right, it's essentially that they can either volunteer to, as part of their development, to put, sculpture, paintings, whatever it is, in a publicly visual location. The entrance, the gateway. Many developments have traffic circles, and quite a few of them will have sculptures. So that is one option that is there for developers. They could do it voluntarily, or in some places they have to do it, or provide a fee in lieu.
Well, I think that was be something I'd be interested in if we're looking about talking about it in February at the retreat, is looking at some type of 2 or 3 proposals from staff about how to move forward with fee in lieu or maybe plus line item, whatever y'all suggest to consider.
Okay.
And I think you mentioned on here having a citizen committee to help, when you're looking at a project or projects, I think that's helpful also. And we got to volunteer because we'll have some free time.
I won't comment just yet. I'll ask Ms. Behringer if she has anything.
I am really excited about this. I've been talking about public art for years, and I probably have not been using the right phrases, which may have had something to do with it not really being heard before now. But I'm excited that we're moving forward with it. I have been in touch with the committee in Clayton and talked to them quite a bit, and have another meeting coming up with them about how they made this happen and how they keep it going. I think it's just really, really important to understand, or necessary to understand, the importance of public art and the effect it has on the people who live there when they see it every day, and the effect that it has on people riding through your town. Just one piece, one sculpture can draw attention, and it can make somebody come back through the town again and say, gee, I didn't know they had that. Let me see what else they have. And of course, when they do that, they stop and they spend their money. And that everybody wins there. But I've said it before, and I will repeat it again today. I took art lessons 50 years ago, and we learned really quickly that I was not terribly talented. But the art teacher told us back then that art is the last thing that people spend money on during an economic setback, and it's the first thing that they start spending money on whenever the economy improves. So that is, that's an indication of how important it is to people, even when they're not aware of it. There are oftentimes people who would appreciate something and not be able to put words to it. And so I want us to move forward with this, and I'll do whatever I can do to be supportive of that. And in that vein, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Where are we on the splash pad? When is that going to come in?
The splash pad. So we did have to do some research on stormwater needs for that particular area of town, and it was sort of started to tie them in with the Buffalo road alignment of the Greenway. We have gotten to the point that we have identified that the park itself is okay, does not need to have any additional stormwater measures. And we are looking at a design build RFP for the splash pad. We do have some concepts that manufacturers have shared with us so that we can start narrowing down the cost. But it's a bit more complicated as a component of a park than our playgrounds and other components. So it's taking a little bit longer than what I wished it would take.
Do you have a ballpark idea of when we think it'll be in place?
Well, I'm hoping that we can issue an RFP for design build services sometime in January. And then, it depends on the permitting. Splash pads have to be permitted by the health department. And we're essentially building a pool where the pool will be below ground. So it's, from what I hear from some of my colleagues, from the time you sort of award a contract to the time you actually can open it, it really depends on the various permits that have to be acquired, as well as depending on. It seems that the supply chain issues that were sort of really delaying a lot of projects are not as critical as they used to be in 2021, 2022, so that's good news for us. But I don't know that I can tell you that it'll be delivered by next summer. Way too optimistic, unfortunately.
I've been talking about this for about 12 years, and so I can wait another year, but I don't want it to be sidelined. Okay.
Oh, it's not. It's again, yeah. I wrote the supplemental conditions of a contract for Terry to look at. So we're trying to move it forward as much as we can.
Thank you for your hard work on this, and it's exciting because it shows it's a visual saying that your town is moving forward, not standing still. So thank you.
Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, I want to echo Ms. Behringer's comments. I think it's interesting that we're doing economic development and art in the same meeting, because a lot of people see art and public art in particular as an economic development vehicle. And I think you spoke to that well. People come, and signals to the public what your town's doing. I think there might be some room in here too, as we have this conversation. There's public art, and then there's the arts. And so I remember when my first year, when we were doing the comprehensive plan for Parks and Rec, I made the conscious decision to reach out to the director at that time and say, we need to make sure we have the arts repeated in there, because we do parks well, we do rec well, the arts, the community does pretty well, but the town could step up a little more. So I think that bears being part of the conversation. I think to Mr. Singleton's point, figuring out the right funding mechanism is probably really the top priority, to make sure it becomes a part of a revenue stream that is consistent. That's always one of the hardest things, and knowing, is the money going to be there to do what we want to do? The other is the legal aspect of it. I mean, public art is beautiful, but it has its own challenges. We've experienced that in DGA with the mural, and even with art around town, just the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes. So I think getting a handle on the funding mechanism and the legal aspects of the next commissioned work we do, that we have everything in place, is really, really important. It is exciting. It's kind of, it's something we know and appreciate in the town, but as a municipality, a town body, put the conscious effort into it, I think helps a lot. In a DGA, we've had an arts committee that's met on and off when different projects have come. But I think when the town sort of says, we want to do this, it invites a whole other set of people to the table to have the conversation. So I think having that citizens group at some point, or having an open house or some kind of meeting, there are arts people all over Garner, and so getting their feedback will be really helpful when we decide to move forward. But funding mechanism is really the key thing we need to figure out, and what works for everybody. So, but thank you.
And Mr. Vance.
I would just echo what has already been said, and to Villager, all the points that have been made here in reference to the art, and particularly in the downtown area, has been a huge plus from realizing what downtown was, say 15 years ago, to now looking at the various pieces of art, murals that are down there now, and the interest in art shows a coming back to life and a lot of activity. So again, I agree with the Citizens Committee being in place, and I would say part about the art being in downtown, we have the GPAC down there as well. And so that's a great location for all of this activity to start. So get other municipalities to see what has worked there. There's I'm thinking, no reason to reinvent the wheel when you have other municipalities doing what we want to do. So I would just say, in my opinion, the Citizens Committee would be a huge plus for just moving us forward with this.
Okay, yeah, go right ahead.
Regarding the funding, I've talked to a few citizens in town just to ask prominent citizens to get their feedback about what they think about public art, and they are interested. So it very well may be that we could have public-private partnerships, and that would ease the burden on the town as far as the expense goes. But we have a lot of interest here, and we need to tap into it and see where it can take us.
I have just one curiosity question. The sports mural in the rec center, was that put in place as a result of the contract call for that, or was that donated by the contractor? Do you know?
I believe it was paid by the town. And I believe the artist was selected because he had worked on the mural at Full Bloom.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, so it was the same artist that did, yeah, okay.
Yes, yeah, we were looking to incorporate art into the building, and since that mural was on the side of Full Bloom, was very popular, and a well-known artist, had done some things in Raleigh, I think a Parks and Rec staff contacted the artist, and he was agreeable. Since he was already in the area working on something, he was agreeable to doing those pieces inside the rec center. And we paid for it. Scott Kernick. Is that Scott? Is it Scott?
Sean.
Sean Kernick,
And
yeah, okay.
there was one mural included in the design of the building, so there's one sort of graphic mural that is on the one wall of the middle gym, and it's really a takeoff of the lines of a basketball, so if you really think about it, it's a play on that. That was designed as the only piece in that building, and as the building was coming along, as Rodney and Maria said, there was a desire to add even more, and the popularity of the mural on Full Bloom drew staff to contact him, and we found funding within the budget to be able to add those as we were doing the work.
Just one other question, and I promise not to get us in the weeds too much, but so like when an artist does something like that, we'll use the recreation center, and over time the artwork becomes tarnished or chipped or whatever. I mean, is there any contractual agreement with that artist that he will come back and redo, or it's just up to the town to hire someone else? Or again, I don't have to have the answer to that, but
No,
just
that is
curiosity.
part of the policies and procedures that you have to put in place. Typically, if the artist is alive, you will engage them to sort of repair the work. A mural, in the case of a mural, typically artists will, freshen up the paint. Sometimes you will commission a work of art knowing that after 10 years you'll paint it over, and that's okay too. If the artist is no longer with us or has moved elsewhere, that it becomes sort of cost prohibitive for them to be doing repairs, you can get an art conservator. You can kind of work it out, and that is part of the legal framework of an artist contract. Because if you change the work, and the artist has still all the rights afforded to them in the 1990, there could be litigation because you're altering the work, and the artist could say that work's no longer by me.
Right.
So stuff like that.
Something for a citizens committee to think about, I guess. Okay, other comments or questions? Go ahead.
I do have one question. It's kind of off this subject, but while you're here, I've been asked recently what the town's plans are for the Jurgen House, and the sentiment expressed is, please don't let it fall down and go into disrepair.
I think part of our CIP plan is, I want to say it's in fiscal year either 25 or 26 to get some funding to do an assessment of what it would take to refurbish the house at some point. And certainly, the options are there for.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, I'm too far from the microphone. Part of our CIP program, I want to say it's in either 25 or 26 fiscal year. We have some funding allocated to assess the condition of the house and kind of plan for its refurbishment. Future bond program.
Isn't there consideration of making it like an event center? I'll just put that out there.
It's probably too early to tell
Yeah,
on
that's
it. We need to have the assessment and see what refurbishment needs to happen and then how that space could be used. But certainly something like a Ram Bryan House kind of event center could be a possibility, but we would need to look into that further.
And the possibility of alternate funding sources besides the town, maybe some partnerships or preservation funds or something like that.
Question, why would we not do that sooner than 25 or 26 when the condition could spontaneously deteriorate fairly quickly if there were roof issues and the sooner, I got to put it this way, the sooner we know what it needs, the sooner we could make a decision, maybe lease it out to someone sooner and it could generate revenue, or I'm not sure why we were waiting a couple of years.
Well, we do try to maintain it, so Public Works does take a, look at the house and try to maintain it. So if there's any leaks, anything like that, we do address those immediate needs. Part of the decision on timing was just the consideration of funding with the real focus on the Jurgen Park piece of it and getting that work done. The next logical step was then to focus on the rest of the property, which included the house. So, although we're not doing the assessment of the house and sort of the future use of the house, we are maintaining it to the best of our ability until we get to that place in our planning and funding.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Matthews,
comment,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I spoke to this with Maria and probably some others. I know the Historical Society owned that Jurgen property. What was the little, I call it little hospital out there. They had a big interest in relocating that over there where the depot is now and utilize that for historical purposes. And was willing, the conversation was going where they might, I don't know how the funding would be to move that. But before we really get cranked up on that Jurgen, if we're going to move it, they need to go ahead and move it because they'll open that property up to do some things maybe we want to do differently. And they'll maintain it and use it. They said they need space. So that conversation probably needs to be held somehow or other with the Historical Society on that little White House, little building down there, because they do really want it over there where their location is.
You have to remember, the White House got completely remodeled inside and looks nothing like an historical house.
It's a very
It's small.
19.
Oh, yeah, you wouldn't, nothing inside looks historical. The outside does, but that was redone, and it's no, you could, but it doesn't.
Yeah, when the Women's Club was granted historic landmark status, they told us that it was strictly the outside of the house that it was based.
But I'm saying, people might be disappointed when they walk in and see laminate floor on there. They didn't have laminate
That might be
floor back in the day.
They
so.
might fix that.
Well, it could, but it could cost, but I have no issue with that. The slate roof on that house is wonderful, at the original house. We have to remember that house, if I'm not mistaken, did not have central heat or central air. They didn't believe in that. They heated
Fireplace.
with fireplace and coal, and the way you cooled it in the summertime was open the windows with no screens. So just remember that it's a cool old house. Haven't been in it, but it's really cool. But the refurbishment you're talking about,
The Great House.
hundreds of thousands or $1 million. I mean, I'm just being blunt with you.
So I sense on the
sorry.
conversation I'm hearing that there obviously is quite a bit of support on this council for going down this path for sure as relates to pursuing the concept further. Do I understand correctly that council is asked to be prepared to have more specific discussion on this at the February retreat? I mean, we can have some more here this evening, but I think the idea is to bring back ideas. And of course, you and your department will also bring some ideas, I suppose, to that. Is that correct?
We'll start putting together, a framework with ideas of, what it'll cost in terms of human and financial resources, as well as any ideas that we may have about, revenue.
Okay.
I'll mention one more thing, because we have temporary and permanent. In some towns, I know down in New Bern, their mascots, the bears, and it's big. They have these decorative masonry ceramic, whatever you call bears. They paint, and somewhere in front of a business for some time, for months or years. Other times they pick them up, move them around town. It's pretty cool. Little Washington does the same thing. They have some art, not with bears, but different pieces of art that move along their parkway there on the river. And I know down at the coast, I'm just thinking of more Reed City, theirs is around town. I think most of that's permanent, but I know New Bern does sometimes move the bears around. It's pretty cool because
That's cool.
if you ever seen them, some of them are very colorful. I mean, they let people paint them.
Like the wolves.
Well, I mean, they got overalls and shorts on, and then sometimes it's a more traditional look of what a bear may look like, but it's pretty cool.
Clayton moves theirs around too. They rent it.
In the downtown area more than when I've driven down through there, because it's right there right on Main Street. Yeah.
I think
Anything
it
else,
might be
Mr. Mayor?
interesting to, sorry,
Wait, no, yeah, I'm clear.
start having these conversations with developers early about incorporating, like when we work with LMG and we let them know that was an important component, they knew from the very beginning that And then they came with ideas, you know, something that works better with their space and their design rather than coming after the fact or paying money to go somewhere else. I think the sooner there's sort of that extension of we'd like to work with you on doing something, the better. So.
Okay, Mr. Vance, I'll cover you down there. Okay, all right. Anything else from council? So you have what you need from this discussion, I believe. Is that right, Maria?
Yes, thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, item number 2 is economic development update, and I believe we'll recognize Ruger and maybe also Ms. Douglas. Welcome, sir.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you tonight. Shayla's a little under the weather, so we will kind of tag team this, but we appreciate the opportunity. I just hit my year anniversary last month, so you know it's timely to provide an update, to highlight the successes and provide a recap of the events and work we've been doing over the past year, and then talk about what we're doing moving forward. So these are our 3 focus areas for our department. So business recruitment and retention, marketing, and entrepreneurship. And this is what we are working on every day down at 120 East Main. So for business recruitment, you know, I'll kind of just provide an economic development kind of 101 kind of brief overview of our partnerships and relationships with our state and county partners. So on the business recruitment front, what that means is I'm working with our project managers at Wake County and my former colleagues and project managers at the state every day for requests for information, update on kind of product inventory. So we kind of just wanted to highlight kind of just how that process works. You know, when you're hearing me talk about, you know, product and requests for information and all that, it really trickles down from, you know, an example would be a site consultant reaches out to one of the project managers at the state, says, hey, I'm looking for a 100,000 square foot building, you know, with a population of X around it. They'll kick that down to our partners at Wake County. Wake County will then kind of send out a request for sites or pick up the phone sometimes and call us up. And then that's when we submit what's available and what's not available. So keeping Garner top of mind with our project managers at Wake County and our project managers at the state is key. I can't tell you how many times some of my old colleagues at the state have just picked up the phone and said, hey, I know you have that 180,000 square foot building, you know, is it still available? You know, most of the time it's not, just because we have a limited product inventory, but I always take note of the times when they just reach out and call you directly to ask, because that's a whole lot better than just shooting emails back and forth. So keeping Garner top of mind is kind of paramount in our world. And then keeping those relationships building. So economic development folks are coming and going all the time, so making sure that, you know, keeping up with who's coming in, who's going out, both at Wake County and at the state. So, and as I mentioned, the requests for information that are so key in our world, these are just the stats from, you know, July to now of last year. So the 99 RFIs we received is a total of 37,104 jobs. And about $15 billion in total investment that all those RFIs make up. So, and you'll see there I have 2 site visits listed. It's key to get companies and consultants into your location. So that's a, you know, key performance indicator that we kind of track, just because we know that you can't sell them your product without getting them here and getting their eyes on it. So we keep track of that. And unfortunately, of the 99 RFIs we received, we were only able to submit on 9 of them just because we didn't have the available product. And of those 9 that we were able to submit on, it was just kind of the usual suspects of the product that we do have here. And speaking of product, so our current product, obviously everyone's well aware of Beacon Commerce Park across from Amazon. We're happy to get some new product in Building 3 coming online there, which should be within the next 90 days. Greenfield 27 is the picture that you see right there. The big building, the 160,000 square foot building, is the building that's available and usually most submitted for requests. And with all these, buildings that you see there, I'm working with the brokers and the developers of those products frequently, just keeping track of, hey, is this still available? Anytime I'm getting a request, just to keep those relationships up. Garner Business Park 70, there's a new building, Building 5 is coming online. That'll be 225,000 square feet of much needed space. I can't wait to get that one open just because of that sheer amount of square footage. And then Inc. 4300, I know we've talked about that at least, the whole year I've been here. We've kind of just seen a downturn in life sciences requests, just the nature of the industry. So that product is still there, and I'm in regular contact with their brokers, talking about what we can do to kind of promote that and make sure that the greater life sciences world knows about it. And then with the future opportunities, obviously everyone's well aware of E-District, working with the developer on that, as well as the Northeast Gateway, which I'll talk about here shortly, as well as the I-540 corridor, and we'll get into specifics about that in closed session. And then also don't want to miss talking about with the transit-oriented development opportunities that we'll see with bus rapid transit coming down. So site identification. So I just spoke about available existing buildings and then moving on to site. So site identification is key. As all the buildings are getting leased up and taken, we need to look at future areas to grow into to make sure that we have ample product. So in partnership with Wake County commissioned a site identification study with a well-known local economic development consultant to review all the available sites in Wake County. So all the different municipalities in Wake County worked with Wake County Economic Development to find sites. The good thing for us was that GEDC commissioned a site study earlier. So we kind of had that, and the Wake County site identification program really just confirmed what we kind of already knew of our available products and areas to focus on. So then, and there were some recommendations that came out of that. So obviously, the 540 corridor presents a lot of opportunities for growth, but the two challenges there are utilities, which of course I'll get into later on, and then land control issues. So just not having control of the land, we don't have control of it. It's not ours, so we need to get that taken care of. And then in addition to that, we are working on the very first small area study with the Northeast Gateway is underway as we speak, and I'll touch on that in a second. And then moving on to marketing. So with marketing, our two main tools that we use and we see as the best tools are the two websites. So Choose Garner, which is a website that I'm updating frequently and making sure to point folks to. Spoke with the site selection consultant not too long ago, and he popped on the website as I was talking to him, and he was looking at it and said, gave me some pointers on things that were good, and then showed me some other locations of websites of kind of what they were doing, kind of just the best practices. And then with our DGA website too, that Shayla's on and updates regularly just to keep the community informed of everything that's going on downtown.
Great. Hi, everybody. I apologize for my voice. As Nate said, I'm a little under the weather, but just bear with me. So for entrepreneurship, our biggest program we have going on right now is Launch Garner. We have a total of 30 graduates over our past 3 cohorts that have graduated the program, which is 10 weeks of intense business training provided by Wake Tech. And at the end, they graduate and receive a Garner Chamber membership, a free year of Canva, and a professional headshot. Our last graduation was on November 16th, and we graduated 9 graduates. And we are currently in the process of developing a touchdown workspace in the back of the GearWorks building for recent launch graduates and other entrepreneurs in the Garner area to have a space where they can work if they don't have a space free of charge to them. And with Launch Garner, we have a multitude of partners throughout the community. And I think just the sheer number, if you look at the screen, shows the strong network of community and civic organizations that we have in Garner. And it was originally a, excuse me, Launch was originally a Rotary program, and both Garner Rotary clubs are involved in Launch Garner. And these partner organizations provide financial resources. They also help us in mentor recruitment and also participant selection. And we have a board member from each organization on our Launch Garner board.
Perfect. So this picture right here, if I had to pick a favorite day of the year, this would be it, because we're giving away laptops. Who doesn't want to receive a free laptop? So this young lady here at Garner Magnet High School received a laptop because she was one of the winners of the business pitch competition. So I know y'all are a little familiar with that, but it's basically kind of a Shark Tank style business pitch where these young entrepreneurs presented all of their businesses and their topics and everything, kind of went through it, and we had some volunteers get on a Zoom call and basically kind of critique their pitches a little bit and ask a lot of questions about their businesses. But there were some winners out of that. So I was talking to my son not too long ago, and he's like, what's your favorite day at work? And I'm like, the day we give away laptops, because who doesn't want a free laptop? An interesting story here, this young lady received her laptop. Her brother won the year before, so she wanted to make sure that she won because he won, so that she didn't have to use his laptop anymore. And then again, kind of with our partnerships with the high schools here, so Garner Magnet High School and South Garner, we meet regularly, monthly with them, both high schools, and they host a number of events, which to me are very important. And I wish I'd had in high school. The Reality of Money event is my favorite, just because all the kids go around to different tables and they're given a profession with a monthly budget, and they have to go around all the different tables, which are housing, transportation, childcare, credit cards, and it's amazing to kind of just see the shock in their faces of when they get at the end, if they either have a little money left over, a lot of money left over, or if they have to go to the table where you get either a second job or advice on how to make extra money when the ends don't meet. So, and then we kind of do the same thing with the Dress for Success event, basically telling the kids the do's and don'ts of what to wear, what not to wear, which is fun and makes me feel old, because I was wearing a golf shirt one day and he's like, oh, would you wear that to a business meeting? I'm like, not really. And he's like, well, that's nice. You look nice. And I'm like, a little bit different. So, and then the mock interviews to me are very important, working with the kids, kind of just getting their soft skills set up. So these are days that both of us really enjoy being in the high schools. And then in economic development, there are many cliches, and the first one is it's truly a team sport. You heard me say it earlier. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting our partners. So our two internal partners with GEDC and DGA, and then our external partner with the Chamber. Without them, we couldn't do our work. So starting off with GEDC, some of the highlights this year is we developed a new work plan, which we knew was key into recruiting new board members. We're working on a Northeast Gateway small area study, which I'll get to here in a second. And then we did recruit 2 new board members who actually, this is a big week for GEDC. So we have a meeting tomorrow. We have new board orientation on Thursday, and then we'll get those new board members on and started. So, and here's our work plan that we were talking about, which was key in kind of just, kind of charting the path forward. So the Northeast Gateway study, I'm extremely proud and excited to talk about this. So a little bit about the background. This is the first of the 3 small area studies. Obviously, the town funded those. We issued a RFP back in September and reviewed the responses. We have a committee made up of Mr. Vance, Mr. Kennedy, and our chairman, Jeff Swain, who reviewed that and selected a consultant. Tomorrow morning is the kickoff meeting with that consultant. So we'll start to work on that. The consultant is Inspire Placemaking out of Durham. And the consultants we've worked on a timeline, obviously with kickoff tomorrow and a target completion within the next 6-7 months.
So this year has been a big year for DGA as well. We have 2 new board members, Mary Smalling and Bear Gervais, who both have businesses in downtown, the Banks Bed and Breakfast and Pedal to Pedal Bicycle and Plant Shop. Last fiscal year, we had 185 volunteer hours contributed, which is valued at $5,500. The state calculates about $23 per hour is what a volunteer is worth. We also brought back most of our events in-house for 2023. So we had 8 downtown events, 2 night markets, 3 food truck rodeos, and 3 pop-up markets, with our last one being last Saturday, and we will start back up in April when it warms back up. And so for DGA, we follow the 4 principles of Main Street, since we are a Main Street community, which are organization, promotion, design, and economic development. So with our plans, we plan on partnering more with Garner Parks and Rec and Cultural Resources in the Garner Area Historical Society. We're working on growing downtown social media footprint. As Nate spoke before, we use the website to market, but we're also finding large success in our social media marketing, so looking at growing that. Continuing to plan new and existing events. Since I've been here this past year and a half, I've heard everybody say they like having the events in downtown and how it feels like a big community gathering, and it feels kind of like family reunion or Garner Day. We're working on creating at least 1 public art opportunity by the end of 2024, and then looking for opportunities to have local artisans benefit, and then propose alternatives for retail and restaurant mechanisms, because as we know, we do not have any restaurants in downtown, but trying to figure out how we can navigate through that. The Garner Social District has been operating since March 1st. As you know, it operates 12 to 10 Monday through Saturday and 12 to 5 on Sundays. We currently have 4 businesses, Aristotle, Zen, Shady's, and Full Bloom, that sell to-go beverages. And so far, we have sold over 2,000 to-go beverages with no issues with Garner PD or any issues of any drunkenness or DUIs or anything like that. So that's great. It's been an economic boost for those 4 businesses, and people really enjoy being able to walk around with their drinks at events. And as part of us being a Main Street community, we submit statistics each year. So for 2022 to 2023, we had 2 new businesses, which were Zen Yoga and Wine Studio and Pedal to Pedal, move into downtown. Both of these businesses had locations elsewhere and then decided to move into downtown Garner, which we appreciate. We had 2 building rehabilitation projects, 3 new full-time jobs, 2 new part-time jobs, $177,000 in public investment and $250,000 in private investment. And then in March, we were able to go to the Main Street Awards in Statesville, where Garner received an award for Best Infill Development for the Garner Recreation Center. And Mari Howe was also honored as a Main Street champion for her 7 years of service to downtown Garner.
And certainly, last but not least, our partnership with the Garner Chamber. So they're instrumental in helping us execute our economic development goals. So some of this program that you see here, the Impact Conference, the Summit Awards that we just attended a few weeks ago, they're instrumental with Launch Garner and serve on the board and help get mentors for that. The intercity visit that we actually had the pleasure of attending this year, we went up to Richmond and learned all about their bus rapid transit and best practices with that, and then around regional partnerships. That was very important to hear about that. And then, of course, they host all the Small Business Week events that we partner with them on. So key partner there. And here, going back to the Impact Conference, this is a map that we developed and we created to highlight the key focus growth areas for the town on the 3-hour tour. No Gilligan Islands joke intended there. with the two are highlighting the specific growth areas so that people who aren't familiar with the town as a whole can kind of see the areas that we're focused on. And then moving on to what's next. So we are working on updating our strategic plan. We know it's been a little while since that was updated, so we're working on that, and we'll share that with you as soon as that's done. And then now that the comp plan has been adopted, that's a huge asset to us as we kind of help socialize that information with the development community and anyone kind of coming in, letting them know that this is the vision, and now that it's been adopted and it's the standard, just kind of help educating them in that process. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An upscale restaurant down in that area, I hear there's reasons we can't have it, or can you elaborate why I've got Shady's done, but they cannot, someone said they can't prepare meals. What's that all about? Can we even have a restaurant down there? Do you have some sort of legalities, or can you address that?
Yeah, so there's technically no legality. It's just cost to upfit and place grease traps. So currently, there used to be an oyster restaurant there that's now a technology company is in it. So there's been places that there can be, but I think a lot of the places, especially the back, because I think Cassandra Lyles was working to try to put something in her realtor office down there, but her office doesn't have a back door, and then trying to put a grease trap, it kind of gets hard configuring that, especially with those older buildings. But I think new build will probably be better to have restaurants, because a lot of people, once they get in and trying to upfit the older buildings, they kind of see the cost and back out.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Vance to my right.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, Mr. Singleton, come back to you.
That's what I appreciate, the presentation, the information that you provided us with.
And Mr. Dellinger.
There's a few questions. Thanks for presentations, the information. What's the timeline for the upgraded strategic plan for, I guess it's GDC, and what input will council have on that? I know kind of a lot of that comes from the Garner Forward, but what's the envisioned role for incorporating council into that process?
So we're working on updating the strategic plan now, so don't have an official kind of due date as we're working on that internally, but of course would welcome feedback as we're creating that.
It'd be helpful at some point to get a draft, maybe in a closed session or something like that. I think from an economic development standpoint, from your presentation and kind of the way Garner has historically done things, it's like we're going to do warehouses and we're going to do houses. And we're not really promoting anything in between. And we've rezoned a lot of opportunities away. And I think as you and GDC go through the Garner Forward plan, trying to find, it seems like E-District will kind of break the mold a little bit on mixed use. And we highlight it very significantly in the Garner Forward plan. But I think one thing that might be helpful over the next year is sort of creating a visualization of when are we going to tap out of space? When are we going to be done? When are we going to, if we max out all our industrial over here and we fill up the rest with residential, so that helps us see like at some point we're done. There are no sites to be had. There's no more growth to be had. And it's like a dead horse, but I go and talk when I was going door to door and campaigning and asking people what they like about Garner, and they're like, there's no place to eat here. And we really like going over to Fenton, over in Cary. And it's like, so we need to fill that middle space, because Garner folks don't want to go to downtown Raleigh. They want to stay in Garner so bad to do all their shopping and eating. And so as you create that strategic plan, I kind of hope that's part of it, is that you can stay. I think what was the name of the consulting group?
Inspire Placemaking.
It's almost like perfect for what we need to do. So I just hope that comes to the fore, because I know it's pretty prominent in the Garner Forward plan. But thank you for the information.
Very good. Comment.
Yes, we've had a couple of restaurants down there in the past, not in the recent past, but we had, years ago, what, Corky's Dugout Deli was underneath the the Bryan Building. And then we had an oyster bar down there. You mentioned the grease traps and that problem for not being able to use that building, but how did they accomplish having a restaurant if that was a problem?
Yeah, so that's the only place that had a grease trap
Okay.
in those buildings, and now it's a technology company, and they've kind of gutted everything in there that was restaurant ready. So that would probably be the best place now that we could have a restaurant there, but until they either leave or lease out, it's kind of.
Is there any plans for the space between the Bryan Building and Lee Carroll's building?
Not that I am aware of, no.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, anything else? Well, I want to thank you both for working together on this process. Challenges in that area, and we've overcome a lot of them, and through a lot of perseverance, we've come a pretty good ways. Still got a ways to go, but fill in some of the gaps down there, and
Mayor, can I ask one more thing?
good business place. Go ahead, Mr. Matthews.
And somebody had asked me about this. I know Congressman Deborah Ross, we had for the parking lot, what have you. Is any updates where that is, how that's going, that you can talk about?
So, excuse me, forgive me. Right now, they're currently in the utility acquisition phase with Duke Energy, and then funding will be released in July. So they're hoping to have everything started to be bid at the early part of next year for the project.
Okay, anything else, Council? All right, thank you both. We appreciate it. We'll look forward to hearing from you again before so long. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just wanted to thank Nate and Shayla. They have a lot of responsibility for a small department of two and have both endured through some changes in the last year to year and a half, and just wanted to thank them for all their good and consistent work on behalf of the town. And a lot of the work that they're doing every day are not things we always see, and so hopefully this gives you a little bit of an understanding of what they're out there doing every day to represent the town. And if there's other things that you're interested in seeing and hearing, we'd love to take that feedback and provide that to you next time. But thank you to them for carrying on the good work that they're doing.
and just in that same vein, I'm always impressed when I get to go to your graduation to hear from those folks who've been through the program, and think of the Smallings, for one, who obviously have their own business down there on Main Street. Or no, that's not Main Street, that's one street over, right? Yeah, okay. But anyway, yeah, I echo what Mr. Hodges just said. Stay the course, and thank you for the work you've already done. Okay. All right. Thank you much. All right. We now come to, I guess we want to do manager reports before the attorney report. Is that right? Okay.
Mayor, Town Council, just going to mention some holiday events. Of course, this weekend, December 2nd, we'll have the holiday block party on the back lawn of the GPAC. That's from 2 to 4. And then there will be a parade, and I'll let Councilmember Dellinger talk about that. But from 6 to 6:30, somewhere in that time frame, will be the tree lighting. Remind me where the tree is this year? Did we? Same place up on the hill up there. Okay, on Main Street. Okay. And then there's also a couple of holiday movies, December 3rd from 2 to 4 at the GPAC. Not a couple, but there will be a holiday movie December 3rd at the GPAC. Wanted to give you an update on the leaf collection.
Mr. Manager, but before you talk about leaf collection, I believe the block party is going to be at the rec center in that outside space. You said the GPAC.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the rec center.
So I just wanted to clarify for
GRC,
those who
yeah.
are
Thank you.
watching that it's going to be at the rec center area outside, and then inside if the weather doesn't cooperate for us this weekend.
Yeah, I meant the rec center. I don't know why I said
Were
I had
you-
the GPAC on my mind since the show.
Were you going to mention the two music concert with Mr. Burnham and also?
I was thinking about doing that next time
Okay.
on the 5th,
That's good.
but I can mention them now
Sorry.
if you want me to. The music. So I'll mention that during
Okay.
next week's
Next meeting, all right.
Let's see. Leaf collection, Mr. Jones, the Public Works Director, gave me an update on that, and he just wanted me to make a statement that we're at the peak of leaf collection season, and based on the volume of leaves at the curb waiting to be collected, the contractor is experiencing delays. Therefore, leaf collection will be operating on a delayed schedule until early January. Our team will post regular updates on the town website as well as other social media outlets. These updates will include the current route being serviced and the next route we will plan to service. I mean, a lot of times, you know, as you get closer to the holidays or the weather, or rain or whatever, a lot of leaves tend to fall at the same time. And so, you know, the contractor does their best to stay on the schedule. I think the posted schedule tries to keep up with your recycling day, but that's not always, it's not always going to work depending on the volume. So, but we'll keep an eye on it and see if there's any adjustments we need to make as we go along. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the manager from his report? Okay, I'm going to recognize Ms. Jones, our town attorney.
One
sorry.
more
Oh, go ahead.
announcement. I don't know why I forgot this, but Thursday we will have a, I guess, somewhat of a celebration for the closing of the conservation property, the Lyles property as we call it. It's on the east side of 50, I think 90, close to 95 acres or so of conservation property. And so I've sent invitations to the council and mayor-elect. So hopefully you'll be able to attend as we celebrate being able to conserve that property for environmental and nature conservancy.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I don't have a formal presentation for you this evening, but in follow-up to my recent performance review, wanted to talk to you about an assistant town attorney position. So as you recall, you did approve and fund a paralegal position for this fiscal year. I went through 2 recruitment processes, including a hiring bonus in the second round, but was unable to hire a qualified paralegal that had local government experience. One offer was tendered and the person declined employment with the town. An attorney can provide legal services that a paralegal would not be able to. This would include providing legal advice, handling court appearances and litigation, and reviewing and approving legal documents. An attorney could also provide administrative services that the paralegal was going to perform, and some of these services that I perform right now, which, you know, included doing, you know, check requests for payments, coordinating meetings, scanning and copying, and following up on compliance deadlines. The other benefit of an assistant town attorney would be redundancy and succession planning. It would be better to have another in-house attorney during planned and unplanned absences of myself as the town attorney, as well as planning for my future retirement one day. Now, I understand that this will have budget implications both in this fiscal year and in future fiscal years. And in talking to budget and human resources, the annualized cost of a paralegal, which was at grade 15, so this would include, you know, the estimated salary and benefits, was about $98,000. And the annualized cost of an assistant town attorney at grade 27 would be about $147,000 for each year. So that's a difference of $50,000. Also, with my increased salary, so that'd be an 18% increase over 9 months of this fiscal year, comes out to approximately $18,000. So there will likely be future budget adjustments would be needed, depending on when someone could come on board and be hired, what their starting salary would be, what immediate training needs there might be for an assistant town attorney, plus any additional contractual legal services that might be needed through the remainder of this fiscal year that which was not programmed into the FY24 annual operating budget. But with this request for an assistant town attorney, the legal department would remain at 2 full-time equivalent positions. So what I'm asking for your feedback, if you have any other questions, if you're agreeable to that, then I would place that item on the consent agenda for next week so that the position could be added to the town's position classification list. And then the recruitment process could start after that.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions, comments, and response to the inquiry about the request to have this put on the consent agenda for our next meeting. So, Mr. Singleton, I'll start with you if you have any.
For our discussion a couple of weeks ago, I think the council was unanimous in approving that, or supporting that move to bypass the paralegal route and go ahead and get an assistant town attorney. So I'm in favor of moving forward.
Ms. Barringer?
I have a question. Since we weren't able to get a paralegal during the 2 times that you sent out requests for it, do you anticipate something similar happening to that, since we would be offering an assistant attorney position, or would that be totally different?
I don't anticipate. I think there's more of a pool of newer attorneys looking for work. Also, I did have a number of people who were licensed attorneys applying for the paralegal position, but their salary expectations were higher than what we could provide. So there was a lot of interest in the paralegal position. It was just getting someone that was, that had local government experience, had the right level of experience, and then also the interest in working for the town. So I don't anticipate the same difficulty. I'm regularly hearing from law students and recent graduates of law school, looking for careers in local government.
Okay. Majority.
I would agree. I thought we talked about it at our review, and that with Mr. Singleton, I agree we need to go ahead and move forward with this, and it's just going to get busier.
Okay. Bellinger?
Yeah, you can't grow into where you are. You've got to grow into where you're going. And I think sort of the analysis of the current legal needs now and then on the horizon, and the capacity of other municipalities, legal departments, from a continuity standpoint as well. I think it's probably the better use of resources to follow your recommendation.
Mr. Vance, comments, questions?
Move forward with what's been recommended. Have no issue with it.
Okay. Mr. Manager, any questions?
No, I would just add that, I know the workload is there. I know staff puts a lot of demand on Attorney Jones's time. I know the council puts a lot of demand on Attorney Jones's time, so the demand for more assistance. And as we do more projects, and even when we go out and hire outside attorneys, we still need some internal oversight. So even like when we're getting easements and things like that. So definitely could use more bandwidth in that area. We got a lot of things I know lined up that we need to have done in a timely fashion, and I know she tries to prioritize her time the best she can, but I know it would be better if there were more opportunities for assistance.
Okay, thank you. So at the next meeting, I guess this will be on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All Right, that's agreement, everybody, I believe, yeah, okay. All right, I'm down to council, was anything else from anyone else, system managers, anything? Okay, so why don't I start with Ms. Behringer with council reports?
Only one thing, and just a question. The speed bumps, whatever we call them on Main Street, are not being very effective. And I was told over the weekend that bike riders use it as a jump and as a challenge and, for more entertainment. So what are our plans about making them more effective?
On the jumping, I know we have police monitoring that, hopefully to help put an end to that. And then we're also planning to put stop signs in that will make the distance between the speed humps and the next longest interval shorter. So maybe that will help.
Do we know when the
As a-
stop signs are going to go in? Because this has been about 2 or 3 weeks I've been hearing this.
Harrison, the town engineer, can answer that question.
We don't have a hard date right now. What we're working on is we have to be able to remove those parking spaces that will be in the intersection. So Shayla has plans. I've spoken with her. She's going to talk about the plan for blocking off those parking spaces and what we do with that area the next time she meets with the downtown group. And so we can kind of make sure that they're on the same page and understand what's going to be happening before we start taking away parking. And then we could move forward with having Public Works actually do the work of blocking off that area and installing the stop sign. So hopefully all of that will not take much longer. I think she has a meeting beginning of December that she's able to talk to them about.
Will be a welcome change because it's not slowing up anybody coming down there. They don't even notice. A little help.
Mr. Challenger, report.
After the block party at 4:30, there will be the Garner Optimist Christmas Parade on Main Street. We are monitoring the weather. So far, it looks okay. We're meeting tomorrow evening, and we'll take another assessment. And if we need to do it again Thursday and Friday, we will. But for now, we're a go on the parade. It'll be down Main Street as it's been for the past couple of years. So Main Street will close at 4 o'clock and open up around 5:30. Another public announcement, I guess, on road closures. Let everybody know. So we look forward to it and appreciate the support of the so many town departments in helping that come together too. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vance.
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, I think I maybe mentioned this before. I'll mention it again, is the concern of a lack of dedicated space right in front of the GPAC for a bus stop. I mentioned this because in the last few weeks, and I mentioned in the summertime, people were sitting on the tree trunk, the tree roots, and the heat to be in the shade. I saw folks last week, 2 weeks ago, standing beside the sign. There's one couple there making out all over the sign, but that's a whole nother story. That's not the place to be. But one of them had a cigarette in their hand, and it's dry, and you're sitting there with that mulch. We dedicated at the bus stop there. We had the one put in down there past the dog park and past the Garner Rec entrance. I don't know if we want the red one, a red one there. I think one that's more of a neutral color, a bronze tone color would look good. And I don't think we want right in the middle of the GPAC to be on one side or the other. But I would just encourage us to get some kind of bench down there so people can sit on something beside the tree and the sign. Because they're there for the bus, and they need to have a place designated for them to use. So,
Singleton, I've got some information I can share
Thank
on
you.
that.
Thank you.
Amy Pridgeon from the GPAC had reached out this week also with the same concerns about that. And we've reached out to Go Raleigh, and they've looked at the numbers, and because of the increase in, well, let me back up. When they recently made some improvements along the route, they did add the little strip of concrete to make that a wheelchair accessible stop. So you may have seen that added there. At the time, it did not meet their warrants for adding seating or any other amenities. When we've reported this to them, they've gone back and looked, and we're now exceeding the numbers that are needed for that. So an immediate offering that they gave us this week would be the ability to add what they call a semi-seat. So it's basically 2 seats hanging on one post, and then they could put a pole-mounted trash can there. So that can be done mounted in the edge of the concrete that's there, and the addition of that concrete that added, it filled in the gap, would allow us enough room to still have ADA accessibility around the seat. So they're willing to go ahead and add that to their next installations that could be done in a few weeks. So I think if council's okay with that, the wheels are in motion to do that. And so we could do that and monitor that. I think if we wanted to go and add a bus shelter, those are typically decided on locations based on Go Raleigh and the ridership. And if we are going to go and do that, I don't know if there'd be additional cost to the town or whatnot, but we could at least move forward with this semi-seat as they have proposed to us. And that would at least provide a seating space for 2 people at a time at that stop.
Well, let's start, I just, that particular property is an historic property. Those trees are older than any of us in here, some of us in here combined, and it's a historic property, and I'm concerned for the property, but if the ridership's there, then, I'm concerned for them to have a place again to stay. So I've seen the 2-seaters at places, and that's a start. I just, more than that, but that's just me.
Well, we were planning to continue the conversation with them because we haven't told them to move ahead with that. There is a space on the west of the second driveway, between the driveway and the retention pond, before you get to the corner, that appears to be enough room to possibly put a bus stop, but that would be sort of foregoing the concrete that was just put in to make it ADA accessible. So what I don't know is whether there's a program that we can pay up to add a add a shelter and the other work that has to be done when it doesn't meet their criteria for the full shelter. So we're going to ask about that, or had planned to ask about that before they went ahead with the semi-seat, just so we had that information.
Okay. And I know they added the concrete, but that's not a whole lot of concrete, let's be honest.
Right. It would at least move that away from the tree roots and the sign, and in addition to the things that you mentioned, the concerns about other objects are being brought to the area to sit on and being left there. And so that's another concern of staff's.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all addressing that and getting some feedback from Go Raleigh.
Okay.
Okay, did I cover everybody? Yes, go ahead.
Just one thing, this Monday of next week, the Veterans Committee will be meeting at White Deer Park at 9 o'clock and kind of making our game plan for this coming year, and got a lot of projects happening. And thanks to our HR committee, we've got it staffed with really good people and worker bees, and I think it's going to be a good year for that committee, and they are involved. So we'll keep you updated.
Okay, all right. I think I covered everybody then. So I believe a motion to go into closed session would be in order at this time.
I move we go into closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A4 to discuss potential economic development activity.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay. If you favor the motion, would you vote aye?
Aye.
And opposition, and there is none. So I'll declare that we will Okay, the mayor will declare that the council is now back in open session, having gone into closed session to receive information relating to economic development. Council received the report and encouraged staff to continue working on the matters at hand and to get back to the council with updates at the appropriate time. So I believe that covers everything that was on our agenda for today. Does anybody else have any other matters that need to come before this council? Hearing and seeing none, motion for adjournment will be in order.
So moved.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor, would you vote aye?
Aye.
Okay, I declare this meeting of the Garner Town Council work session is adjourned.